Welcome to the Board of Education curriculum meeting. Welcome all parents, students, teachers to hear some exciting news. Um, Tonight is September 10th, and we're starting at 6:02. My name is Mary Ellen Flaherty Ledwick, chairing this meeting, and my other board member is Colin Hostin, present. Rob Pennington will take it over from here. Appreciate all this work, and I'm excited to hear what you have to share. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Rob Pennington, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, excited for our first curriculum subcommittee of the year. With me this evening, I have Stacy Bergen, who is our Ed Administrator for Curriculum Professional Development, and Dr. Lori Leibowitz, who is our Assistant Ed Administrator for Gifted and Talented in the Arts. So with that being said, I am going to share the presentation so that we can get started. Let's see. Can we see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So this evening, we have 4 components that we're going to talk about. One of them is the Science of Reading modules that our elementary staff, K through 5, started last year and are continuing this year. We're going to be talking about the updates to our middle school English language arts curricula and really looking at one of our historical fiction units. And then we have our arts curricula updates. We did a lot of work last year updating the different arts curricula. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our updates in the realm of gifted and talented. So we have been using the Naglieri assessment, and they have a new update that we will share. And this year will be the first year that we implement this new updated Naglieri. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Bergen.
Hi, good evening. So good to be with you in community this evening. Last fall, we started the first 5 modules of the Science of Reading training through the Hill for Literacy. We completed the Brain in Reading, Oral Language and Literacy, Features of Effective Instruction, the Power of Phonemic Awareness, and Word Blending. And teachers really enjoyed engaging with these 5 units, and we look forward to the next 5 modules, which actually start in 2 weeks. So we have the role of automaticity on September 23rd, text reading, so different ways that we can attack text as we're reading it. How do we grow our vocabulary as readers and writers? Building comprehension. That's one of a big focus areas this year that we have is once we've gotten kids reading, they're encoding, they're decoding, they're making sense of words and letters together. But now what strategies do we use to really build their level of comprehension? And then putting it all together, we'll focus on this idea of now that we're readers and writers, how do we then become educated citizens of this great world that we live in? So we're really excited. The journey will take us from September through May. And then we'll introduce our teachers once again to some embedded coaching that will happen and work with our partners at the Hill for Literacy. So we're really excited about this work. It's been a 2-year process, and we look forward to jumping in with both feet this year.
Any questions on the Science of Reading? I know we talked a lot about it last year, so it's just important that we continue to bring this work that's happening and this training that's happening to the forefront because we know the importance of the work.
The importance of the work. I just want to underline, if I'm understanding this, that this is for all teachers, K through 5. Is that what we're doing? So all teachers will not only reading specialists, all teachers.
Right. Correct. Every teacher.
The only teachers that would not be participating are the ones that we've talked about, the letters training.
Yes.
So because it is a similar type training that goes a little bit deeper, our letters training is If you are letters trained, then you would not be participating in this training. But everybody else besides that.
Yes, this is good. This is good. Building comprehension is the goal there. Yes. I
Yes,
love that.
yes, it is. Okay. So we worked with the reading coaches and some of the ELA middle school teachers last year to really think about, Mary Ellen, we talked a lot about last year about changes in social studies that were coming down, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so we thought here is a really great opportunity to think about how we can link both social studies and English together so that students could have a reading experience that could either A, inform their history classes, right? So coming in as an expert into the history class, or vice versa, coming into the English class with some really solid content knowledge around particular content areas in grades 6 through 8. So depending upon the timing and how things work out, you'll either be an expert in social studies or you'll be an expert in the English class. But the historical fiction unit, we're really excited about, because what we did was we aligned it to particular, these three particular standards. So in grade 6, we're looking at a series of historical events and developments in a region as examples of political change and continuity. And I'll show you in the next slide some books that the kids will be exploring. So looking at how did historical events have an impact on political change, or how did political change have an impact on a series of historical events, right? So depending upon what the approach that the teacher takes. And then we have in 7th grade, we're looking at sort of what are our rights and responsibilities as human beings, right? To sort of be our brother's keeper, to take care of others, and thinking about issues around human rights in both governmental and non-governmental contexts. So we have some books that we'll look at reading with our kids in and around that. And then in 8th grade, we will look at, so this standard here talks about the analysis and impact of the United States treaties and the sovereignty of Native nations, right? So in part of the legislature that came down from the state of Connecticut said that we have to teach Native American history. And so we thought in 5th grade, they sort of study Native territories and Native regions, but really thinking about how do we then transfer that learning into looking at, so because these other changes happened in the United States, how did that have an impact on Native Americans? And so we'll look at some texts that will support that learning as well. So Rob, next slide. Thank you. So in the 6th grade, we have actually 4 books. So students will engage in book clubs around these 4 books. Before We Were Free by Julia Alvarez, which looks at the reign of Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. We will look at The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh, which looks at the war in the Ukraine. So a very relevant modern topic that's happening right now. Winterkill, that looks at a series of events in Russia. And then The City of Orphans by Avi, which looks at the orphan train, the orphan train experience as a result of war. And so 6th graders will really be diving into these texts and looking at sort of what happens when there's political unrest in a country and its impact on its people. In 7th grade, we then
can I just ask, is that,
sure.
Will they go through all 4 books, or are they going to have choices?
No, they're going to have choice. So one thing that we know with middle schoolers is they really need choice in the classroom. So I don't want to read what I don't want to read about, right? Or what I already know. So the kids will be broken up into book clubs. So there'll be a group of kids who will be engaging with one of these 4 texts. And because they're thematically linked, it's this idea of looking at historical events across the world that have impacted people.
Children, especially.
Right. Yep. And then for 7th grade, we change our focus a little bit to this idea of what are some of our universal rights? And one of them that we talk a lot about in 7th grade is the right for water. And so when we look at, we picked out 2 texts that look at the water crisis in Africa, The Long Walk to Water and The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and the perspective from these 2 male protagonists, which by the way, is not really, there aren't a lot of male protagonists in young adult literature. So when we find good ones, we want to highlight them in our curriculum. And so we'll be looking at the water crisis as sort of the undercurrent for these two books. And then in 8th grade, we're looking at the Native American perspective. So we'll be engaging in the Code Talkers. So we know that those were our great Navajo friends during the World War, in which they helped break some of the code. My Name Is Not Easy looks at, who am I as a Native American in a sort of world where people may not be able to pronounce my name. I have a different name, but my government name is like John. And so looking at like how that identity, how I struggle with that identity, and so many of our kids struggle with that identity as well. And then the last one is mascot, and really looking at this idea of, whose call is it to say what is an appropriate mascot in a school, and looking at how kids make decisions around the historical area that they live in, and whether or not they want to engage in naming their school mascot after a Native American image. And it's really interesting because it's very relevant right now, right? We've had changes in sports history that have led to the changes of some of the teams. So the kids will engage in these books in different ways. They will be provided with historical context, which they will need in order to engage in the reading. And then our hopes is, that they walk into their history class and say like, hey, I know some stuff about this already, and be even more actively engaged in the learning.
All right. So interdisciplinary in a sense.
Right.
That's
and this is our first, sort of like step into that this year. So we're very excited. We're looking forward from feedback from teachers and kids. Going to get very excited to look at some of the student work that comes out of it. So we're just, we're ready to start this. This unit will kick off in December.
I applaud some of the selections that you've made. They look very, very engaging, and I'm eager to hear how they react to it also. I've read a couple of the books, and they're terrific. The Talkers and the Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. That's well written.
Yes. So that's it for our updates for ELA. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Leibowitz, who will take us through some updates in the arts.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so the last time I think we met, we were talking about the teacher-driven edits that were being made to the music curriculum, and we have completed, I would say, there's only a couple more things that have to be tweaked in terms of courses at the high school, but our K-12 general music and band and strings curriculum is completed. So I'll let you take a look a little bit at what that might look like. We have also done some work around the portrait of the music graduate, and I'm excited to show you what our teachers have kind of come up with in terms of our critical thinking and things like that. So that was that was a great accomplishment that we made this summer. Our curriculum also includes some SEL components, and I'll just show you a quick view of what the curriculum map looks like. Next slide. Thank you. So here we have, my view is blocking, so let me, okay. So here we have the portrait of the music graduate, which the teachers really worked on, and we talked about, what are these characteristics going to look like in music, because this coming year we're working on critical thinking and really honing in students' abilities to become, critical thinkers across the subject areas. So really taking a look at music and kind of breaking it down to where kids are, evaluating, analyzing, performing, synthesizing music ideas, and helping them through the national standards become not only musicians, but critical thinking musicians. And next slide, please. And here's a little look at the component that the teachers thought it was very important that we really highlight the social and emotional learning in music because for a lot of our kids and a lot of our students, music is an area where they really thrive. It's an area that really kids that may not feel strong in other areas, they can really connect through the arts and music. So we really highlighted these social emotional learning skills. So the dedication and perseverance, teamwork and collaboration, leadership skills, self-expression, social awareness, emotional regulation, and cultural understanding. And so the teachers really wanted, anyone that's really looking at their curriculum document to know that that's in here in Norwalk, that's what we really truly care about, is we start with the social and emotional learning and we kind of work our way up. These are the building blocks.
These are the building blocks. I like looking at the emotional regulation and think about how, yes, the musician does in the process of creating music and playing music, it establishes their own regulation. But those of us listening to it, we can have emotional regulation
Absolutely.
by listening to their creation. So it kind of goes in a number of virtuous directions.
Absolutely, Mary Ellen, I agree. Super important. And so here's just a little glimpse of what the curriculum map looks like. Again, this was all initiated by the teachers. So they really wanted, a new teacher, let's say, that's new to Norwalk to see, where do we start in pre-K and where do we end up when we get to 12th grade? So this is a really nice visual that they created to show sort of where the programs begin, what grades, we start, what grades do we have strings, what grades do we have band, and then some of our also special programs that we have, like the color guard and the jazz band and the ensembles. So this kind of shows you where we begin and where we end the continuum. So it was really important to put this map in the document.
And that was created during the summer. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That's a very nice, all in one place.
And you're probably going to hear the strings players warming up in the background because we're highlighting and spotlighting all of the arts teachers today for National Arts and Education Week. So this is great that I'm presenting about music and they're playing in the background. It's like, I didn't plan it though, I promise.
Terrific.
And so here's just, I wanted to show you one grade level, what it looks like, what the curriculum document will presents itself. So we have it's organized into 4 different sections. So the creating in the pink, and then performing, presenting, producing, responding, and connecting. These are all our national arts standards for music. And you could see that the actual standards are listed at the bottom. We have essential questions and also the enduring understandings. So this is one page of the document. And then on the other side of the document, on the other page, Rob, if you go to the next slide, it shows a little bit, it's kind of like a one pager for the teacher so that they can really look and say, okay, under creating, what do I really need to focus on? And then it kind of breaks it down by skill. And then we also have included the musical elements at the bottom. And this is for every grade level. So every grade level looks the same. So if you were to put the document and you did some vertical articulation, you would kind of see how we build from one grade level to the next, and how it, gets more complex as we move on in the grade levels. I love the template that they've come up with, and it just gives it a uniformed look to it, which I thought, that was really important to have that continuum as well.
Lori, that's very helpful. And what it reminds me of is I just recently looked at our minutes from May, and whoever was taking the notes had creating, performing, responding, and then question mark. He or she didn't get connecting. And so we can throw that into the notes when we accept those, maybe later in this hour.
Absolutely.
Yes, connecting is the one.
Connecting. And that's really one of the most important parts, because that's where we can kind of infuse music into the rest of our curriculum, such as like literature and math and social studies, and like, how does that all kind of interconnect, and really make music the most interesting, as we kind of work cross-curricular.
Yes. It's always interesting how mathematicians are so connected to music, things
But the
like,
patterns, absolutely.
yeah.
A good pattern, if you're a good person, if you know your patterns, then you're probably a good musician. You may not even know it. Okay. So that kind of, I don't know if you have any questions about music before we move on to gifted and talented.
Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay. So one of the most exciting updates that we have for Gifted and Talented has to do with the Grade 3 Universal Screener. So we've been using the Naglieri Nonverbal Assessment for the past 7 years that I've been here. And it's a great assessment. I love the assessment because it has no language on it. But Jack Naglieri, the author of the assessment, actually has come up with 2 new portions of this test, and they include the verbal and the quantitative. And I'll go over the 3 of them and why and how they're different and why they're really important. And so really what it's doing is we're going from 1 subtest to 3 subtests, which will give us a better view at our kids' at their ability, their natural ability, without using language, because Naglieri says, you can't, when you put language and when language gets in the way, then we're actually discluding a lot of students that would not have a chance to be successful. So none of these 3 assessments don't have language on them. Even the verbal assessment has no language. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you the 3 pieces. So the verbal section actually uses pictures, which they go across, they're cross-cultural. And what the student does is they need to understand the relationships between the 6 pictures to understand what verbal concept is being presented. So I wish next time I'll come back with an actual example and we can try it and then see how we can answer it, because they're really difficult.
Okay. That sounds like a great
So
idea.
they have to come up with what is the relationship without really explaining it. So it's a picture that's missing. And so they have to pick the picture that represents the relationship. There's no oral directions. There's actually no sound directions. It's all pictures. It's all animated. It's like it shows a picture of a student taking a test, and then there's like a question mark that comes up, and then it shows the child like choosing the answer because it's all on the computer. So that's the verbal. The nonverbal we've always given in the past. So it's the same subtest that we have been giving to our Norwalk students. And then they've also come up with the quantitative assessment. So those are composed of questions that are presented using number shapes and arranged in a pattern. And so that requires the students to examine the patterns, like we were talking about in music, and then using the symbols and basic math concepts. So there are no word problems, and the items can be solved regardless of the language that the student speaks. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you. You enjoy the song in the background. So again, like I said, there's animated instructions. So there's video. So it really eliminates the need for comprehension of verbal directions. We don't need to read the directions in multiple languages. So it's all pictorial basis. It's measuring thinking rather than knowing. So we give other assessments throughout the school year, such as, the MAP testing, and the kids take the SBAC testing and things like that. But this is measuring their thinking rather than their knowledge or knowing of academics. So again, it's really showing us their potential and what they could be exposed to, which I think will really help us in terms of figuring out, we know we have a kid that has gifted potential, but If we know that they're really strong in the quantitative realm, then perhaps that's where we want to give some enrichment in math, right? And so now we have sort of data to back up our claims. So I think it's really important that we are always using data and data-informed decisions, right, that we're making for kids. So this piece of data will help us to really truly understand what a child's gifted potential really looks like. And again, it's multiple choice.
Let me ask this, is this third grade for all Connecticut schools, or have we chosen to start it at third grade?
So you could give it in the spring of second grade. Why I don't like to do that is because then you've given the assessment and then you have to wait the entire summer to then follow up with action. So by giving it in the fall of third grade, we can then take the data that's there right in front of us and then start identifying students and then also making talent development groups so that we can, this way we don't have to wait the entire summer to go to use that data.
And when would those student classes begin?
So they would,
Is this the
yeah.
first week of school, and does everybody take it?
So we're going to start this assessment. We're gonna do it in October. It's a brand new test, so we have to, and that's usually when we test for gifted and talented, because right now what the GT teachers are doing is they're pushing into the third grade classrooms and they're really observing the students. Because again, kids are more than obviously just test scores, so they're also giving them exercises in creativity and exercises in other ways of divergent thinking and you know, taking notes on these kids so that when we meet on them in November, the beginning of November, we can really understand, you know, what kinds of services our kids might need. So GT classes in third grade start after Thanksgiving.
Start after Thanksgiving. And you're saying that all students will take this test. It will be
Yes.
for the whole classroom.
Correct.
And then we sort out from there.
Correct.
Okay. It sounds like it would be a fun test to take. Difficult, but fun, you know.
And it gets harder and it can be a little embarrassing.
For an adult.
For myself, like I consider myself to be pretty, you know, pretty with it. Some of the test questions are, I'm like, what are they asking? So yeah, but it's a great, it's more like fun for kids. It's only 30 minutes and it's almost like they're solving puzzles. So a lot of kids say that they don't, you know, we've asked kids how they feel and a lot of kids have said it's fun.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. And it takes the teacher out of the picture to a degree for, you know, it's sometimes difficult to sort out young people's behavior from their giftedness. And so this kind of delves in, as you said, in a fun way, but hopefully in a really productive way.
Yes.
Genuine need for enrichment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
So I don't know if you have any questions or.
Is there is the other group of talented, we have that, I'm not sure if it's in middle school, but the expansion of just talented kids, is that in middle school or does that come along with third grade?
So we screen kids multiple times a year up until grade 7, really. So this test that I'm talking about right now, we can't use in middle school right now because it's a brand new test. So they're still actually gathering norms on it. So we'll continue to use our Naglieri, the nonverbal, for our screenings in middle school and for talent development. And I just keep asking them, when will you have the norms? Because, you know, we want all of our kids to be able to benefit from taking all 3. So it's coming, they tell me.
So if you could just clarify that the group of talent talent development kids, that begins in middle school or that begins in?
Talent development begins as early as elementary school.
It does.
Yes, and it can also, talent development can start even before third grade. So if there's time in a teacher's schedule in terms of enrichment, our GT teachers pull some groups of students as young as kindergarten for talent development.
I see.
And we have that program and it runs through 8th grade in terms of the talent development, because what we feel is that we can really teach into gifted potential. So we have kids that are cycling in and out for 6 to 8 weeks of enrichment with the GT teacher for talent development.
Okay, for talent development.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you hear the music in the background?
a little bit.
Okay.
So I think that is our curriculum update to start the year. We've had a great start. We're continuing to update a lot of our curricula. And I think as we have our different meetings throughout the year, we're going to bring different departments to come and share. We'll talk about the science work that's happening in middle school. We'll talk about the social studies work that's happening in elementary and middle school, and really provide a lot of updates throughout the year and the different processes that we're going through. And we're excited for what the year has to come and lots of new updates.
Well, that's good, Rob. Just a question on housekeeping. We didn't accept the minutes from the last time. Can we do that right now?
You have someone that's going to make a motion?
I'm not sure if I can. Colin, could you? I just want to make an addition to the last one, that the transcriber wasn't sure what the fourth thing was, and now we know it's connecting in the gifted, in the music, excuse me, in the music. Help me out, Lori. In the music, what?
In the music curriculum. That's
In the music curriculum, there were
Yeah.
4 things, and so we just want to add the connecting to the notes. Otherwise, it was good. Colin, could you make a motion for that? Okay, we'll table that to our next meeting.
All right. Well, I think that is it for this update or this session. And you want to make a motion to close out the meeting?
Yes, let's close the meeting, but before that, I just want to thank Stacy and Lori for excellent work. Thank you so much. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Well, let's see you guys soon.
All right, sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.